Are you looking to grow your dental practice and attract top-tier new patients? Discover the potential of digital marketing with a personalized strategy session. Join Lila Stone, the marketing director at Equa, for an exclusive 90-minute consultation. Lila and her team will dedicate 6 hours before your meeting to create a customized marketing plan specifically for your practice. This valuable opportunity is free of charge and comes with no commitments. Visit www.insuranceuntangledorg/MSM to schedule your meeting with Lila today. You'll also receive a free analysis report so you can start transforming your practice through the power of digital marketing.
You are now listening to another episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast, where we explore the various challenges faced by dental practices due to their reliance on insurance. Join us in this podcast as we dive deep into the issues surrounding dental insurance dependence and offer practical solutions and strategies to help you take control of your practice's financial future.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. My name is Ben Tuinei, and I'm one of the co-hosts on this podcast that is developed to helping practices like yours untangle yourselves from the mess of dealing with insurance. So we talk about all kinds of topics, and insurance is one that we love to hate to talk about. So buckle up and strap in. We're going to talk about something fun with insurance. Today I have my colleague and co-host Tessina with me. Tessina, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
So everybody knows who you are, Tessina, and so I'd say let's just dive right into the content.
Okay.
So what we want to talk about today is a topic surrounding why are doctors going out of network with dental insurance to begin with? Like, what are doctors thinking? Like, what is going through their mind, right? So what's motivated this topic is, I was just joking with Tessina a few minutes ago that this year I received 8 different lawsuits from 2 incidents from the same insurance company, but 7 from different insurance companies. And so every year we get 8 to 15, sometimes 20 different lawsuit threats. And it's all surrounding insurance companies not wanting us to be vocal about what we're talking about. The fact that out of network is pretty good for practices, right? And the data indicates that and support that. And we've been reporting just the truth of things. And it's so unfortunate that, you know, where you live, Tessina, we had that unfortunate incident at Utah Valley University a few weeks ago. And it's that was a crime initiated based upon a difference of opinion, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we've been getting is, unfortunately, the insurance companies haven't fired any like actual shots at us. And I say that very respectfully because the insurance companies have been following the right protocols to fight people like us. And I respect that game. I respect it. What I don't respect is when violence is inserted here. And I hope we never get to that with our careers. We'll never initiate it, but you just never know how other people are going to respond.
Yeah.
And so today's episode, because I know insurance people are going to be listening to this, is that all we're doing is we're reporting what doctors are saying and where their mindset is at in terms of why the insurance industry has failed them and failed the patients for that matter, right? In the sense that it was the doctors that created this concept of a dental benefit to help improve, at least encourage people to see a doctor more often, right? So the intent of designing dental insurance back in the 1950s, working with the unions, had honorable intent, right? It was totally a great mission to increase utilization, give a mechanism to allow people to focus on their dentistry a lot more than they did in the past, right? And we still need to do better at that. But the design of dental insurance has shifted over the last, 30 plus years in the sense that it's been less about taking care of people and more about making money, right? More about creating a prospectus that looks good on Wall Street for investors, right? Not necessarily what's going to give Joe, what's going to give Jill, what's going to give Susie the best oral health possible, right? So with that said, just kind of lay the foundation of today's episode is we want to report what doctors are saying so that other doctors, as well as the insurance industry, starts to understand, why, the why behind this wave of out of network that we're seeing today. So Tessina, let's start first with the top three things, and then we're going to explain each of those three things individually. But do you mind mentioning, or at least going through, what are some of the top three things that you're seeing as reasons as to why doctors are abandoning their in-network agreements?
Yeah, definitely. This is obviously the main baseline of where everything heads from, everything steers from. These doctors are frustrated. They're overwhelmed. They're frustrated. The patients are likewise frustrated. And everybody is saying, well, what can we do and who can help us if nobody can help us? An example is SRP denials. We have seen a huge rise in SRP denials, not to mention all the denials we've had in the past. I'm not even addressing all of those. Yeah. Just SRP denials right now. What has been very interesting that thousands and thousands of doctors are reporting on is that the bone loss is visible in the x-ray. They have measured it for the insurance company, and the insurance company's denial states that there is no bone loss, not sufficient bone loss, no bone loss. Or some cases they have said, well, the bone loss has to be specifically this many millimeters of bone loss, but that's not anywhere in their guideline documentation until after you get the denial. Then they say it's in your contract that it has to be 3 millimeters of bone loss, and you're 6 millimeters. You're like, well, they've got to go to a periodontist now, but they're losing those things. But they have sometimes these restrictions of what the bone loss is. Most of them do not stay. I mentioned one had said like a specific millimeters of bone loss, but majority do not state a specific measurement of bone loss because you can't. The AAP and ADA, they have different guidelines. It's not just bone loss. It's not just perio pockets. It's a combination of factors, including the patient's medical health. All of this can be presented to the insurance company, and they don't care about all of those factors being pulled together. They target specifically the bone loss. And even when we can show that that bone loss is there, they just blatantly say it's not there. We have gone to the insurance commissioner, and the insurance commissioner says, well, we're not dentists. We can't argue with the insurance company or your doctor about whether or not there's bone loss there. So my question, my call, right, is like, well, who gets the say-all if, and it's supposed to be the dental practices, but there's some struggles in that because they're saying they had a clinical dentist review it, and right, our dentist is reviewing it, and we have a difference of opinion of whether or not that bone loss is there and is sufficient for SRP. But it doesn't matter when the insurance company is restricting that to such made-up guidelines. Mm-hmm. And the insurance commissioner has said, if you're not happy with those contract guidelines, then your only option is to go out of network because you signed a contract with them agreeing to that. Sorry, and I jumbled a couple of things in there too, like the insurance commissioner.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, Tessina. I'm making notes on this, and I'm thinking, holy smokes, who would have thought? Yeah, no, this issue is getting worse. You would think that it would have been better. Here's an example. Is about 10 years ago, all the studies on the percentage of people in the United States that had periodontal disease indicated that it was over 50% of all adults, right? Well, guess where that stands today? So I'm pulling this up live from the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research. Very reputable website in terms of research on these issues. So they're saying that about 42% of adults age 30 and above in the United States have gum disease or periodontitis, right? Whereas a decade ago it was over 50%. Right now we're working through the numbers here, but if the indication of this is that patients are getting healthier as a result of the actions of a dentist, that's what we want as a dental community, right? We want to get people in a better state of health. So when an insurance company says, hey, they don't have periodontitis or there's no bone loss there, I guess the key question is, Tessina, who's actually legally entitled to diagnose dentistry under that setting? The doctor that examined the patient or the insurance company?
The doctor is the one legally allowed to diagnose treatment, not the consulting dentist. The difficulty with these contracts, I guess maybe I'm sometimes jumbling that, but the the complex issue is that the insurance company is saying and stating that they are not basing their decision on what is medically necessary for that patient, rather their own guidelines. So if they're not saying they're because we've called them out on that. You guys aren't allowed to diagnose. And they're like, we're not diagnosing whether or not this patient needs SRP. In fact, we agreed this patient needs SRP, but our plan doesn't cover it because it doesn't have the right bone loss.
The right amount of bone loss, right?
Yeah, the right amount of bone loss, which is made up from time to time. So yeah, that's that contract restriction. So we're talking about why are doctors wanting to drop contracts, because they're fighting that battle. When a non-contracted provider doesn't have that language to adhere to, and they're getting their SRPs covered without those problems.
Yeah, so I guess a big key question is you have insurance companies that are agreeing that, yeah, the patient needs the appropriate treatment that you're recommending, but we're not going to cover it because our policy says otherwise. So as a doctor, I mean, I wish, and maybe we should do this, is I wish every dentist out there that's experiencing this issue would send letters to every patient, and then have the patient send a letter to their employers and say, you guys bought a dental plan that covers periodontal treatment, and you have employees that need this treatment, that are likely may not wanting to do the treatment because their insurance is not going to pay the benefit, And you need to know this as the employer, because what is that going to do to your premium in the future when you have more sick people to pay insurance for? Is you're just naturally going to have to pay more because your dental plan is failing you right now. And so I highly recommend that every practice pay attention to that and let the patients and the employers know that this is going on. So that is a great observation, Tessina. So.
And I will say, sorry if I
You're
didn't
good.
mean to cut you off. One more thing with those numbers from the CDC or that other study that you have reported, these numbers are false, because what's happening, and the insurance company won't, or is going to say that this isn't their intention, but doctors are pulling back on diagnosing, or when that SRP is denied, is it being reported? Because they said it wasn't really necessary. So these reports going out are either lack of diagnosis because the doctor is scared that it won't get paid for and they don't want the patient to have to suffer that. They'll clean the teeth the correct way and just not bill for it. They just lose out the money. And so the reports, we're not helping the situation. These reports are not accurate because we're not billing correctly, or the insurance company is not correctly diagnosing on their, not that they're allowed to diagnose, but they're not correctly reporting it to the CDC either. So our numbers are skewed because they are misrepresenting the true nature of what is happening amongst the people,
Absolutely.
the world.
Love your answer. And by the way, folks, this is not a scripted podcast. We're just having a discussion. What you brought up, Tessina, is actually perfect because, when you talk about that, you have to dig really deep into the ethics, right? But I think that is cause for those that are listening to this to dive deeper into these particular issues, right? Who has the authority to diagnose? Who has the authority to tell a patient what treatment that they need, right? And when an insurance company engages in an alternative opinion on treatment, arguably, if I were a dentist, I'd be going to the dental board and saying, a dental consultant from an insurance company decided to challenge my diagnosis, which is now leading to a patient not believing in the condition that they actually have. And if the patient does not do the treatment, they're going to lose their teeth, right? How do I fight this when other parties that are not licensed to do dentistry, to diagnose dentistry, are getting involved, right? But going out of network, I think going out of network is a good solution, but we need to report these things. We need to fight them a little bit harder. And you mentioned the statistics on, let me just read that again. 42% of US adults age 30 and above have periodontitis. You're absolutely correct. Is that, in my belief, when I saw this number, I was shocked. Like, that's way lower than what it actually is. And I didn't know what the answer is, but you just mentioned it. We're underreporting. We're engaging in supervised neglect, opening ourselves up for liability by doing the treatment and not reporting it to insurance. So if you're doing that, talk to one of us so we can get you
don't
out
do
of
that. And also don't shy away from it. Sadly, the hygienists or the offices sometimes are seeing it and are not treating it out of fear-based, driven by the insurance tactics and policies. They're too afraid to try to report correctly because of how it will negatively affect the patient. So they think that they're protecting the patient, and they're not. And they're not helping anything right now because of all of our reports are off.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. No, I love that. I love that. Okay, so that's one of the big reasons is that
Yes.
this no bone loss issue, and the fact that the insurance companies have blatantly said, we don't really, I mean, yeah, the patient needs it, but we're still not going to cover it because there's no bone loss, right? Okay. So what's reason number 2 as to why doctors are going out of network?
Yes. Let me think about that. It's going to be those contract restrictions still. So I think I was telling you a couple that I thought of recently are that the crown coverage, and there are a lot of these that we will see, but it's hard to know ahead of time. Those insurance breakdowns are really, really important. That when you guys are asking for coverage for a service, don't just ask what percentage, what frequency. We have to ask about the specific guidelines and restrictions for each procedure. So if a patient goes in for a broken tooth and they need that tooth fixed that day, and that's what medically is best for them, we can look at this with the bone graft and extraction being done on the same day as well. And a limited exam is covered, and a crown is covered, and that patient has a front tooth, they have work that day, they've got to get back to work. Doctor can repair that right then, get that temporary on, they can get to work making money, and they can come back another day to put the permanent crown on, right? Some cases, same day crowns. However, the insurance company will deny the limited exam, stating that it was done the same day and the patient is responsible for it. So the office can get payment from it. And then the patient is frustrated with the office that they weren't told about that expense. They weren't even aware that that limited exam would be denied if done the same day as a crown, because that's what was best for the patient. We can't even argue what was clinically best, what was medically necessary, because it's in the contract restrictions, the contract guidelines. So it doesn't matter what proof we give. They're just like, hey, this is black and white, cut and dry. If you bill it the same day as a crown, it's not covered. I know a limited exam doesn't sound like a very big expense to put on the patient, but these things add up. And it's not just a limited exam. Like I said, a bone graft. A bone graft is covered, but not if you do it the same day as the extraction. When is the best day to do the bone graft for that patient? Medically speaking, when that surgical site is open, you have to place that bone graft at the same time. To bring them back and reopen a wound, are we hearing ourselves? But the insurance company is clearly stating, they will state very clearly for you that this is not based on medical necessity. This is not based on what is in the best interest of the patient. These are their contract guidelines for them to pay less, for them to manage their monies on their end, right? That's how they balance things out. They're like, gosh, we can't just pay everything they send to us ever. We'd probably go bankrupt. So they have to have some restrictions of when and how they'll pay that. And their restrictions make no sense according to us medically and medically necessary for the patient, but they're not designed to, right? So therein comes that frustration. Again, how does a doctor do that? If they can't complain, if they can't show proof of medical necessity, if they can't help get the patient the coverage that they were promised, what do they do? If you go out of network, those contract restrictions are gone. That limited exam, that bone graft being done on the same day as extraction, those languages are gone, and that coverage is now available.
Yeah. I think the reason why all these things go on, Tessina, because you're right, it's a lot more than that. Like pulp caps are bundled with restorative procedures. And it's like, well, if you don't do a pulp cap, how is the patient going to feel during treatment? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's these things that are not scientifically in line with benefit structure, right? And the reason behind why these things are happening is because of the whole concept of assignment of benefit. When doctors started accepting assignment of benefit, the insurance companies knew that the rate of complaint about the plan design would be limited. The employers wouldn't be complaining. It would be the doctors that are complaining about the plan design. But who needs to complain about the plan design in order to affect change? Well, the client does, the employer does, right? And so assignment of benefit was intended to shield the employers from how crappy their plan designs were written, right? And how poorly the insurance is being processed in terms of doing the right thing to get the patient healthier. And when you look at it from an employer perspective, we give employees a credit when they don't smoke or don't drink, right? We give them a gym benefit if they don't have a gym membership. We want people to be healthy. We give them health insurance. We give them dental insurance. We give them vision insurance. Why? Because as an employer, number one, I want to have a good employee retention, but I want my people to be healthy so they can do their work and stay with us long term, right? And as they stay with us long term, there's value with tenure in the sense that the most senior people at any organization that know things, they're the most valuable for you, and you want to keep them healthy, right? So the employers don't know that. And that's because of assignment of benefits. So employers don't know that there are things like D0140 that should be paid for are not being paid for. And what does that do in terms of the culture of dentistry? Sadly, and I don't mean to offend doctors when I say this, because this is actually absolutely the truth, is you get a culture of overdiagnosing treatment. You get a culture of overbilling, right? And that's why the overbilling laws are becoming a major concern. It's not just dentistry, it's medicine, it's every subset. And when you're filing claims, you have people that are trying to figure out how to survive. And so they make up treatment, right? And we just need to do better overall, because I just feel like the current design needs to change, right? To allow for benefits to be paid for, to encourage doctors, to pay doctors, and unfortunately the vast majority of doctors are honest, to pay them for their hard work, right? To kind of avoid these situations where you see a wave of them going out of network, right? So that's wonderful. What's the third reason here? We'll wrap up on the third reason.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Just another example basically is our buildups lately. This has been a problem for a long time where the buildups get bundled together with the crowns. But we have been able to show the proof and the reasoning for the buildup to be paid separately, and that has been going very well. In recent days now, I've been seeing that in order for a buildup to be covered, again, guideline restrictions, not what the ADA says. The insurance is saying that if the tooth is not sheared off at the gum line, then the tooth doesn't need a buildup. And that's just not real. They're just making that up. That's not when. But again, they're stating not based on what patients' needs are, not based on what the ADA says, not what industry care standards are, just when we want to pay for it. That's what they're saying. When we're willing to pay for it is when it's this bad and not before that. And in some cases, those teeth can't even be saved, right? You're like, well, we're not doing a buildup at that point.
Now we're going to do a more expensive root canal or
now we're going to do more
implant.
Expensive treatment. And if you don't do that buildup, now if you say that I'm not going to do the buildup because the insurance isn't going to pay for it, and you don't provide that buildup, that tooth will break, and it will break so severely that the patient has to have much more expensive treatment. So again, what are we saying? What is the insurance company inadvertently maybe, but that's what's happening, is they are training a different level of care, of quality of care, and patients could be getting lesser treatment. And I think our dentists are fantastic and they do not want to do this, but they are put under the pressure. They are put under the wire, and they're like, I'll try to do it, but the insurance won't do it. And the patient, because they're pleasing the patient's like, I only want to do what insurance is covered. So the doctor's like, I'll try to do it without a buildup, right? Not because he doesn't know that that's not a good idea, because he's put in this pressure spot between the patient and the insurance company. And he's like, I'll try it. I'll try it for you so that you can save that money, right? And then the tooth breaks, and then the patient needs an extraction and an implant. That didn't help the patient and really didn't help the insurance. I don't know if they realized that they could have just saved money by paying for the buildup. But this is the direction that we're going. And there's this huge miscommunication and misunderstanding between the dental offices and the insurance companies. And that's what needs to change. That we need to get everybody on the same page of what is standard of care. And standard of care should be what is a covered service.
Exactly. So you mentioned a key thing here, in the sense that insurance companies are saying, well, we don't really care what the ADA says about this particular code. Well, the insurance company should care because they all signed leasing agreements with the American Dental Association and promised to not change the code definitions. So if you're dealing with this as a dental office and the insurance company is denying the buildup and saying the definition of the CDT code doesn't matter, just know that the ADA prohibits violation of coding definitions, right? So that particular statement by an insurance company would constitute a violation of their agreement, which they would be then subject to a fine from the ADA for breaking that agreement, right? Because only the American Dental Association can define coding, right? And so, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think the insurance companies haven't learned their lesson with so many of them going out of network these days. Heck, we're dealing with issues where some doctors accidentally signed up with Delta and a few other insurance plans. And when they sent cancellation terms before the applications were approved, only Delta came back and said, nope, you can't cancel for 1 year. And everybody else is like, yeah, we'll honor your terms. And it's like, when the insurance companies treat doctors this way, and now you're complaining that so many doctors are going out of network, go figure, you know what I mean? It's your fault.
Yeah.
So, well, Tessina, this has been wonderful. And your knowledge on this stuff is unmatched. This is quite amazing. Do you have any closing thoughts to doctors as it pertains to this whole concept of understanding, hey, why are doctors going out of network with insurance these days?
Yeah, another thing is those low reimbursement rates. That's the only thing we didn't talk about. That's that big thing that insurance companies are saying we're being greedy and we want more money. And dentists, we know that those low reimbursement rates, again, play into the factor of quality of care, of what we can do and what we can provide. And more so, can they survive financially? The reimbursement rates have gotten so low that providers aren't actually able to make their overhead. And it becomes a serious concern of them going bankrupt, and sadly, in some cases, suicide. That's the worst. Please don't do that.
Yes,
Okay.
don't do that.
If you are struggling financially and you don't know where to go and you're pinned between a rock and a hard place because you can't lose insurance, because you can't lose patients and the insurance reimbursement rates aren't covering your overhead, please call a specialist. Please call somebody, get medical help, and then also call us. But
talk to somebody.
Those reimbursement rates are designed to be a marketing fee. Think about in any business, if you are paying a marketing fee to bring in certain patients, you want it to be cohesive and beneficial for both parties. If that reimbursement rate is a terrible reimbursement rate, you're like, I don't want you to market for me. I don't want you to bring those patients. And that is what I hear from office after office saying, I'm getting a lot of patients calling in saying they have this insurance company. I won't say the name. And they're like, I don't want that. What can I do? Can I say that we can't take any new patients? And you can, by the way, but it gets tricky in there, right? Of like, we don't want those patients coming in the doors. We want other patients coming in the door. That's not really what our doctors want to do. They want to be able to treat everybody and anybody. And so again, coming to those places of like, what do I do? A lot of doctors right now are feeling like their only option, because we have voice these concerns to the insurance companies. And I think we need to do that more. Tell the insurance companies about these concerns, let them know, give them the opportunity to change. But when we've done that with a few in the past, they have refused to change. And that leaves the doctors with only one other option, which is to go out of network.
Another solid reason towards going out of network. So if you're in that spot there in terms of being sort of highly offended or displeased with the current rates that you're getting from insurance, give us a call. Visit veritasdentalresources.com. We would definitely love to chat with you to see if there's an opportunity to help at least address the low fee schedule concerns. But in the end, if you want to go out of network, we have all kinds of resources there as well to help you, including our partners. Gary Takis with one of our sister podcasts on the same network that teaches these things. Any which way you decide to go, let us know. We can set you up with the right professionals that could assist you there. Tessina, thank you so much for your wisdom.
Yeah.
Always great chatting with you. Always great picking your brain.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll see you on another episode of the Insurance Untangled. And of course, Tessina, as long as she's willing, she'll be on all the Insurance Untangled, and we'll beef up some more experts for this next upcoming one. A lot of our experts weren't available for this last one, but I promise we'll deliver on more in the upcoming webinars. Folks, thank you again. Visit insuranceentangled.com for perks, as well as recordings, past recordings. Past recordings of webinars are all available on insuranceentangled.com. Until we meet next time, we wish all of you the best of success. Take care now.